Hi, it's Adrian. Thanks for joining in. So in this video, we're going to look into commands and conditions in Mythril2D. So both of these are essential to making any game with Mythril2D. By the end of this tutorial, you should be able to create your own custom interactions between your player and its environment. So let's get started. First, we're going to go into the village. Here we are. And we're going to open the tile palette. From there, we're going to make sure we are using the game objects tile set. And we're going to set the brush to game object brush. Okay, we're going to click on the sign. And we should be able to draw some signs on the map now. So let's add a sign right here. Okay, so now if I hit play, and I skip the cinematic, of course, and I approach the sign, I'm going to see a little icon that shows that the sign is interactable. When I click on it, I can see, well, some dialogue. So let's look into what's happening here. So first, I'm going to disable the dialogue that we see when we enter this map by just disabling this game object. And then I'm going to click on the sign that we just added. I think it got added to the default layer. Oh, yeah, it's exactly here. So let's click on it and let's look into the inspector. We can see that the sign already has a comment trigger as well as a box collider. You'll notice that the sign is set to be on the interaction layer. This is required for any sort of interaction to function. So now if I look at the actions under comment trigger, I can see that there is one action to execute, that is play dialog line. If I expand, I can see the content of this dialog line. So let's write something nicer. Now let's hit play again. And here we go. So commands in Mythril2D are super important because they're used everywhere, and they let you play some custom gameplay actions directly from a list of actions that you specify in the inspector. So if I replace to execute from play dialog line to something like a command list, now suddenly I can play as many commands as I want. So let's add a command that moves the player. And we're going to set the movement to -3 on Y. And then we're going to add a second command that is going to play a dialog line. You moved. All right, let's hit play. Here we go. So my character got moved. I was not able to move during this sequence. And then a dialogue got played. So you can create any sort of combination here to create some unique gameplay interactions. You can, for instance, open a menu, like opening the pause menu. And you can even heal the player, damage the player, move the camera, and so much more. Let's try this one. So you can see that the menu got opened in the middle of this sequence of action. And now, if I close the menu, I can see that experience got added. So you can see that there is some notion of temporality between all of these commands, meaning that if a command isn't finished, then the next command is not going to be executed. You can also change this behavior by changing the execution mode from sequential to parallel. If I do that and hit play, you can see that everything got played at once. The menu got opened, a dialogue showed up, experience got added, and my character moved. Some commands are not recommended to be combined, such as opening a menu and playing a dialogue line. These commands, if played in parallel, might result in undefined behaviors. Now, let's use this system and combine it with the condition system. So, conditions in Mythril2D are ways for you to branch out inside of this command list. There are many locations where you can use conditions even outside of command triggers. So let's try to add a condition that checks if an item is in the inventory. So let's remove all of these commands and add one command that is execute command if. Now you can see I can select one condition. So I'm going to select is item in inventory. And here I can select an item from the list. So let's take item bone, for instance. Now, if true, we can play a dialog line. And this dialog line is going to say, you have a bone in your inventory. If false, we're going to play another dialog line that says, you don't have a bone in your inventory. So just before hitting play, I'm gonna go to save file. I'm gonna edit the custom hero save file. I'm gonna go into the inventory, items, and I'm gonna add one bone. Let's hit play. Now it says you have a bone in your inventory. If I remove this bone from the inventory and I play again, it says you don't have a bone in your inventory. Awesome. There are many types of conditions that you can use, such as are condition met if you want to check multiple conditions. You can use is ability unlocked, is game flag set, is not if you want to negate the result of a condition, is quest in state, is quest task active, or is quest task in state. Let's try the game flag set condition. Now we can type a game flag name, so let's call it test. And I'm gonna write test is set to true. Otherwise, test is set to false. Let's hit play. Test is set to false. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our save file. We're going to go to game flags and we're going to add one flag, test. Test is set to true. So game flags are simple strings that can either be set or not set. So basically they act as a boolean. During the progression of the story in your game, you can decide to set or unset game flags at any point. You can use a command to do that. So for instance, I could execute a command first that is going to set a game flag. It's going to set the game flag test to true. I'm going to make sure that the game flag is removed from the save file. And now I'm going to hit play again. You can see that test is set to true. So you could have many elements in your decor that you can interact with, and when combined in a specific way, they can change the behavior of other elements. You can also change how this element is interacted with by changing the activation event. For the sign, by default, it's set to onPlayer interact, but it could be onStart. And now it gets executed as soon as I get into the game. It could also be set to onPlayer collision. You can also add a condition directly here to prevent the command trigger from executing completely. If you look into the Eldham village and you go under audio, you're going to find background music. So it also has a command trigger that executes on start and plays an audio clip. You can find conditions and commands in many places. For instance, if you look at a monster sheet, like the Necromancer monster sheet, you'll find a command right here, execute on death. You can set anything you want here, like move the player, unlock a quest, add experience, really anything you can think of. You can always use an execute command list command if you want to chain commands in a sequential or parallel fashion. You can also disable actions from the player during the execution of your sequence. This is particularly useful when making cinematics, and you don't want your character to be able to move. And that is it for commands. I hope this tutorial was useful, and I'll see you for the next one. Cheers!